The day Karen showed up with her bulldozer wasn't just shocking, it was a declaration of war. She rolled onto my property in a rented excavator, surrounded by a handful of HOA enforcers, all flashing badges that looked more like cheap cosplay than official credentials. Her eyes gleamed with that toxic mix of entitlement and malice that only a true HOA Karen could wear so well. "This barn is an eyesore, a safety hazard," she barked. "It must be removed for the community's well-being. You have 48 hours to comply." I stared at her like she'd just announced plans to bulldoze my family's Legacia barn built in 1882 by my great-great-grandfather, a proud blacksmith whose ironworks had shaped this town for decades. That barn was more than wood and nails. It was history. Karen didn't care. Her threats spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Flyers appeared overnight claiming the barn was structurally unsound and a public liability, plastered on every mailbox and phone pole. She even convinced a few neighbors to sign a petition demanding its demolition, playing on vague fears and misinformation. The community I thought I knew suddenly looked like a sea of faces ready to turn against me, bought by Karen's lies and false promises of progress. But I wasn't about to let history be erased so easily. I contacted the State Historical Preservation Office first thing Monday. After a tense phone call, a stern voice on the other end confirmed my fears and my hope. The barn was indeed registered as a protected historical landmark, part of the official Blacksmith Heritage Trail. Any attempt to alter or demolish it without explicit state approval was illegal. I printed out the documents and taped them to the barn door, right next to the sign I'd ordered. "Registered Historic Landmark, Preserve Our Legacy." Karen showed up the next day with a cease and desist letter. But it was written by a lawyer known for siding with powerful developers, not our local HOA. She waved it like a victory flag. "You don't get to rewrite the rules just because you found some old papers," she snarled. "This neighborhood belongs to us now. You're an obstacle." I needed backup, so I called in an old friend, Maya, a fierce attorney who had a reputation for fighting historic preservation cases and winning. She came with stacks of evidence: photos, witness statements, historical registries, even testimonials from local elders who remembered my great-great-grandfather's forge humming day and night. With Maya's help, I prepared to fight. Just when I thought I had the upper hand, Karen pulled her next movie, a surprise twist that stunned us all. She claimed to have discovered a new community safety ordinance, approved in a closed-door HOA meeting. The meeting minutes were conveniently lost, but according to Karen, the ordinance declared all wooden structures older than 50 years a fire risk to the entire subdivision. She insisted this gave her the power to demolish my barn immediately. It was a blatant lie, but some neighbors started to waver again. The tension exploded at the monthly HOA meeting, where I confronted Karen in front of a packed crowd. Voices rose, accusations flew, and the barn, standing stoic outside the community center windows, became a symbol of the larger battle between heritage and entitlement. Suddenly, in the middle of the chaos, a weathered woman rose. It was Mrs. Jenkins, the town historian, a retired schoolteacher known for her quiet strength. She pulled out a battered journal and began reading aloud from a first-hand account of my great-great-grandfather's forge, dating back over 130 years. The room fell silent, her words weaving a vivid tapestry of sweat, steel, and community roots. Karen's face flushed, her control slipping. Before she could retort, another neighbor, a young architect named Louis, stepped forward with detailed structural assessments proving the barn was not only safe, but a perfect candidate for restoration grants. The momentum shifted irrevocably. Legal battles followed, with Maya filing an injunction to stop the bulldozer. Meanwhile, Karen ramped up smear campaigns, calling me a nostalgic hoarder and accusing me of blocking progress. But the court's decision came down swiftly. Any attempt to demolish or alter the barn without historic preservation authority was unlawful, and Karen's claims of new ordinances were dismissed due to lack of evidence. The community began rallying around the barn instead of Karen. Volunteers appeared to help with restoration. Local media picked up the story, painting Karen as a power-hungry figure trying to erase history for personal gain. Her approval ratings plummeted. One by one, her closest allies resigned or distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with such blatant disrespect. In a dramatic final twist, a former HOA board member revealed recorded conversations proving Karen had fabricated meeting minutes and pressured neighbors into signing fraudulent petitions. This evidence became the centerpiece of a state investigation into HOA corruption, with Karen facing multiple charges including fraud and intimidation. The day Karen was officially removed from her position, the town gathered at the barn for a celebration. Music filled the air, old blacksmith tools were displayed in a small museum curated by locals, and children ran through the barnyard like it was still the heart of the community. I looked around and saw faces transformed not by fear or division, but by shared pride. Karen's legacy crumbled, but the barn endured standing tall, a testament to resilience, history, and the power of standing up for what's right. This story isn't just about one fight. It's about all of us protecting the stories that make us who we are. What would you have done if your heritage was under threat? Was the fight worth it? Do you think Karen got what she deserved? Or is there more to justice? Share your thoughts because every voice shapes the future. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity on the day of the hearing. Every seat was filled with neighbors, historians, reporters, and a swarm of local officials who had come to witness the fate of the old barn and the fate of Karen herself. The air was thick with anticipation and something heavier justice in waiting. Karen entered last, her usual air of arrogance replaced by something much more fragile. She wore a plain dress this time, no pearls or badges, just a defeated glare that barely masked the anger burning beneath the surface. The first witness was Mrs. Jenkins, the town historian. She recounted in vivid detail the legacy of the barn, reading from the very journal she had used in the HOA meeting. Her voice trembled only slightly as she described how the barn was the last remaining structure from the blacksmith era, a symbol of resilience and community that had survived floods, fires, and years of neglect. She pointed out how the barn's architecture was unique, featuring hand-forged iron hinges and hand-hewn beams that could not be replicated today. The judge nodded several times, clearly moved by her testimony. Next came Luis, the young architect, who presented his comprehensive report. He walked the courtroom through the barn's structural integrity, debunking every claim Karen's team had made about safety hazards. His report included photos, engineering analyses, and potential restoration plans that could transform the barn into a community center and museum. Luis' youthful enthusiasm was contagious, and even some of Karen's supporters seemed visibly impressed. The legal team representing me, led by Maya, laid out evidence showing Karen's repeated attempts to manipulate HOA rules and intimidate residents. They played excerpts from recorded phone calls and secretly captured meetings where Karen pressured neighbors into signing false petitions. The evidence was irrefutable. The judge's face hardened when he listened to Karen's own words, revealing her malicious intent and blatant disregard for the law. Karen's defense tried to argue that the barn posed a real threat to public safety and that the community safety ordinance she cited was valid. But Maya dismantled that argument with a detailed explanation of the legal requirements for such ordinances, none of which had been met. The judge ruled that the ordinance was neither properly ratified nor published, making it unenforceable. The climax of the hearing came when Karen was confronted with the recording provided by the former HOA board member, a senior woman who had bravely stepped forward to expose the corruption. The recording revealed Karen discussing how she fabricated meeting minutes, bribed a few vulnerable neighbors with promises of lower dues, and threatened those who resisted with false fines and property liens. The courtroom fell silent as the tape played. Karen's expression faltered and then crumbled as the reality of her crimes washed over her. After a brief recess, the judge returned with his verdict. He ruled the barn to be protected under the state's Historic Preservation Act and ordered an immediate injunction against any demolition or alteration. Karen was stripped of all HOA authority and referred to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation on charges of fraud, intimidation, and forgery. The courtroom erupted in applause. Tears streamed down the faces of longtime residents who had feared the barn's destruction. Maya clasped my hand tightly and whispered, "We did it!" Outside the courthouse, the crowd gathered for an impromptu celebration. The barn's future was safe, but more importantly, A community once divided had been reminded of its roots and its power. The local news crews caught every moment the relief, the joy, and the promise of renewal. Over the next several months, restoration projects began. Grants from historical societies, environmental groups, and the city helped fund repairs. Volunteers of all ages showed up, eager to be part of something bigger than themselves. The barn became a symbol not just of preservation but of resilience against greed and corruption. Karen's downfall was swift. She faced multiple legal battles, lost her home, and was barred from holding any HOA positions for the foreseeable future. The neighbors who once cowered under her shadow started to reclaim their streets, their parks, and their voices. One evening, as I stood on the porch watching the sunset cast golden light on the barn's weathered wood, I felt a profound sense of peace. The fight had been long and hard, but it was worth every moment. My great-great-grandfather's legacy lived on it as a relic, but as a living testament to the community's spirit. I wonder now, when faced with injustice, how many would stand up like we did? Was our battle a beacon of hope or a rare victory in a sea of complacency? Did Karen's fate serve justice? Or was it merely the fall of one bad actor in a larger system? I invite you to share your thoughts, your doubts, your hopes, because stories like ours belong not to the past but to all of us who dare to fight for what is right.